love to everyone. And in behalf of the Bahrain Meditation Center and the other centers of the Middle East, it is my pleasure to welcome everyone. And we truly appreciate that you always find time to be with us in this endeavor. There are two Zoom groups that we have tonight. One is what we have here, the English group. And of course, we have the Arabic group translated, headed by Dr. Awatif Sharaf. So for tonight, it's an interesting topic and always relevant. It's relevant to this time. And let me start with a quote by the famous John F. Kennedy. And he says, "Great crises produce great men and great deeds of courage." And I'm sure that within ourselves and our environment, with families, with our community, we have been great witnesses to what has happened in this great crisis, this pandemic. We have been witness that we ourselves have brought out the best in us, the best learning so far. We have been witnesses also to the great deeds of courage of people trying to do something of how we can alleviate and help each others in this kind of pandemic. So there are more lessons to learn because it looks like this crisis is going to stay. And definitely our speaker tonight would share and shed light to these great lessons that we can learn in this crisis. So to give an idea of our brother, of Mr. Ken O'Donnell, who is the speaker tonight. So welcome, Ken. So it's really lovely to have you with us. Otherwise, it would be quite difficult to have you. So Ken O'Donnell is an Australian-born, but currently based in South America, a consultant and a trainer of biggest companies in about 5 continents. And to name some of them, we have AkzoNobel, DuPont, Merck, Novartis, the Goodyear, General Motors, HSBC, and of course, a lot more. A frequent guest speaker in international symposiums, conferences, and actually had been with us for the 2 conferences. Yes, Ken? No, the first and the last. Yes, okay. That was a great time with you. And he had expertly tackled themes ranging from advanced quality management, human factor in organizational development, and ethics in workplace. He had been a keynote speaker at the 44th and 50th International Congress of Human Resources Managers in Mexico. He also developed and founded effective programs, several of which are self-management and quality of life program, adopted successfully in about 29 countries. Also one is the Oxford Leadership Global Consultancy. Another is leading high-performing teams for Telefónica Corporate University in Barcelona. And of course, this is one of the main ingredient that makes him so effective and well sought. And that is, would always put in spiritual intelligence in organizations. He authored 15 books on leadership, personal and organizational development. In 2009, in recognition of his great humanitarian contribution, he was awarded Personality of the Year by the Brazilian Association of Training and Development. So currently, Ken is the coordinator of a nonprofit organization that works for development of human values in all levels of life and group. So without much ado, tonight, we are so fortunate to have an opportunity to learn the greatest lessons that we could have learned from our dear Mr. Ken. He has a lot of wisdom to share for lessons to learn in times of crisis. So welcome, Ken, and it's lovely to see you again. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. You can hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So it's really lovely to be with you, even though we're only virtually connected. But in fact, we are living in this Zoom world where people are actually somehow closer to each other. And this opportunity, I mean, I don't know how the situation is in Bahrain, where I've been a couple of times. I've also been to Kuwait and Abu Dhabi and Dubai also a few times. I don't know how this pandemic is hitting in that part of the world. Just on the International Yoga Day, I was with or just before that, actually, with our group in Oman by Zoom also. And I got an idea of more or less how things are. But because this particular situation is it is definitely global, and the virus itself doesn't have a nationality or a culture. In fact, when we look at crises at a global level, they don't have nationalities. They may start in one place, but they're part of the equation of human beings and their connection with the world. We amongst ourselves create lots of problems and situations, and also together with nature, we create all sorts of problems. And this particular episode, and we've got no guarantee that similar such episodes will not happen in the future also. This particular virus is such a tiny thing. It's like the virus, in fact, is just a sort of a little piece of genetic material that's been somehow expelled, created and expelled and set free. And it's actually the size of the virus is 10,000 times smaller than a grain of salt. So it's so tiny and so invisible. And that such a tiny thing has shown so many vulnerabilities in our world. When the Americans, towards the end of the Cold War, at the end of the 80s, they tried to redefine the world, and the American military used the word VUCA. A VUCA world means things are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So each of those letters, VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Those four characteristics which define the modern world in a way. Things have just become more and more so, more and more volatile, more and more uncertain, more and more complex, and more ambiguous. That means ambiguous means so many different interpretations of the same thing. And that's why there's so much fake news going around. The complexity is such that it's really a symptom of showing up all of our weaknesses in a way, our human systems. Even the way we're structured economically, the losses that this particular lockdown, and in Brazil, I live in Brazil, and Brazil is number 2 in the world in terms of cases and deaths. Not a very good record to be proud of. And it's basically because the leaders here are not being able to cope with the structure. The infrastructure here is terrible, not like the United States in a way, not like the first world. So there are a lot of people dying, and we've been in lockdown for 3 months already, and it doesn't look like it's going to change in the near future even. Everything is stopped. And so this is having a terrible hit on the economy here. But in fact, all over the world, we're seeing this, especially the countries that depend on international commerce. For example, many countries in the Middle East, They may not have products even, but they work with services and, of course, real estate and all that sort of thing. What is being exported, first of all, people are not being able to purchase. There's lots of gaps in the chain of the value chain within different economies, and this is forcing a whole lot of changes in the way we live. When I was talking to the people in Oman, they were telling me that many of the workers that came from India and other places are having to go back because there's no work. The construction has gone down and so on. So it is having an effect everywhere, one way or the other. And it's just as there was the Great Depression, this particular period that we're living through will be called in the future, definitely, the Great Lockdown. It's apparently 10 times worse than the financial collapse in 2008, 2009. And the world has taken a hit at the level of, I don't know, so many trillions of dollars, maybe 20, 30 trillion dollars, which is obviously a huge amount. If you look at all of the graphs, the stock exchanges from let's say, February through to June, you will see everything going down, down, and down. And not like a slight down, it's like this down. Things have gone down. This is affecting everything everywhere. So on one side, it's creating a lot of panic, especially those who depend on their livelihoods. In this part of the world, for example, if you don't have money, you die, basically. There's nothing you can do. So crime is really increased because people have been forced to be with ones that are close to, like, their families. On one side, you could have used the situation to really solve your relationship problems. But on the other side, there's been a 20% increase in domestic violence. So the whole thing is shaking the very roots of society, I would say. And the world, people are expecting things to come back to normal, but in fact, they probably think things won't go back to where they were before this pandemic. And the uncertainty, the volatility we see, the uncertainty in this word that the American military coined, VUCA, the uncertain bit is just increasing anxiety. People are uncertain about themselves, uncertain about the future, uncertain about their governments, uncertain about their leaders. And so when uncertainty increases, anxiety also increases. Even before the pandemic, the mental sort of impact of the way we were living was making anxiety grow so much. Like before the pandemic, even 4 or 5% of the world were suffering from chronic anxiety, which means thinking too much and worrying too much and liberating sort of very nasty hormones in our systems, like cortisol and adrenaline and so on, to make ourselves even more stressed than we already were. But together with the pandemic, I think that 4 or 5% has probably doubled or tripled. So you probably know someone yourself who's suffering from anxiety, and there are very definite signs. And I would say that the consequences, of course, that are being created, for example, the losses to the world economy, some people are being very creative to invent new ways of earning money. I know several initiatives from friends, and they're being really creative the way that they're going about things. But other people are just resigning themselves that, we can't do anything. It's everything difficult, everything hard. It's not the same. So you'll have, as the sister said when she gave the introduction, this quote from JFK, about crises bringing out courage, and we are seeing this, but it's also bringing out fear. So you've got two options at the moment: to be carried by the winds of these very grave circumstances, just to be pushed and pulled by those winds, or you can take an attitude of being a protagonist of something new, and this we are seeing here and there. We're also seeing, for example, in some countries. The other day I was talking to some friends in Australia, and they were telling me how things are starting to open up, but things are not going back to normal at all. In our meditation school, for example, they've opened up, but the people have become accustomed to listening to everything online from the comfort of their own homes. So we may be obliged in some place to reconsider having big places where lots of people gather. That's definitely true here in this country. We've got very big places, and we're looking at these big places that are empty, and we're wondering how we can justify having them when it's easier to organize something online. So all of these things are happening. A friend of mine, for example, in Sao Paulo, it's a huge city. It's 20 million people. And in normal times, the traffic, there's about 8-9 million cars in one city. So you can imagine the horrendous traffic jams. So a friend of mine has a lawyer's office with 30 lawyers working for him. And because of the lockdown, they were obliged to do everything from home office, working from home. And he had a place in the countryside. So he moved there, had a good internet connection, moved there, and started to do everything from there, as well as his 30 colleagues were also working from their places. And he said, I'm not going to reopen my office, no need. We can do everything from home. Why should we pay such a huge rent in the downtown city and face 2 hours of traffic every day to get to and from work? Why? No, this is better. So we're noticing places are shutting down. The Central Bank of Brazil shut down half of their places already. So it's interesting to understand what's going on. So there's a lot of remodeling of society going on in a way. And new norms are coming up, and old bad habits are being thrown out the window. But one of the things that I'd like to share about is when there's a crisis, and this is a particularly serious one, it shows the strengths, as that was said in that quote, but it also shows up the weaknesses. And so lots of things that were under the surface are coming to the surface, like racial discrimination and all sorts of prejudices, and the social distancing has created some people who are, we don't want to come near you, showing up the weaknesses in our health system, in our political systems, in our economic systems. And I would say all of these different levels of influence that are outside of us, that, come from the environment, come from the way the government is, it comes from the laws and the regulations, it comes from the illnesses themselves. They have an impact, and finally they impact on the individual. So the individual can simply just give in and just be swallowed by all of this huge avalanche of situations, or can find strength and come out of it. So one thing is to have in this particular case with the virus, to have a strong immune system that can help in any case of suddenly, the virus gets into the system. The virus is just like this little bit of genetic material, like a seed, just looking for good soil to plant itself in. That's what it basically is. So if my physical immune system is down, it'll have a greater chance of, creating havoc. In a similar way, spiritually, forget about the situations around us. But what are the spiritual things that I can do to make myself strong enough to go beyond this sort of influence? And we know that a lot of illness is based on our state of mind. I mean, we make ourselves sick by having negative and waste thoughts. Over a period of time, we weaken ourselves physically. Especially, I just give the example of anxiety. We have some glands within the brain, some organs within the brain that are specifically connected with the anxiety. So there's a threat coming, and you start to pick up on the threat, and you start, even without thinking about it, you start to produce adrenaline. So the things come into this front of the brain. There's an organ on both sides, actually, of the brain called the amygdala. And then it goes through some process and ends up in the thalamus, which is another organ of the brain. And the thalamus is already giving instructions to produce the cortisol and the adrenaline, which is important when we need a boost of energy to run away from an angry dog, for example. We need it. But if we're producing that continuously without needing it, then that will have a very bad effect on different organs in the body and the brain itself. So definitely the emotional response to things has a very clear pathway to the creation of illness. And that's been so well studied, it's easy to prove. It's easy to show how stress causes disease, especially long-term stress or even anxiety causes some sort of disease. There is so well documented this. But also since the 50s, there has been an incredible amount of studies done on how meditation also helps to reduce stress. So there's a lot of study that shows how stress causes illness, but there are also a lot of studies that show how meditation helps to, change the way the brain works, even change the function of the brain, change the cognitive skills, change even the brain chemistry through meditation practice. There are a number of studies that show this. So we should not just be at the mercy of our thinking and the situations outside of it. I can take charge of this process, and I can determine the sort of thoughts that I would like to have, even in spite of whatever's going on. Worry is something which leads to anxiety, which leads to these bad effects on the body. Worry is basically something that's like thinking about a future without the facts. If I really had information about something, then I could worry. But often worry is when I don't have any information. It's sort of speculation, imagination, and we get carried away by it. So I've been seeing that there are 5 presents that we can gain in a time of crisis as now. And these are 5 presents that I've been experiencing. The first present is, since I can do a lot of things from home, I've actually got more time on my hands than I did before. And that may not be your case, but I know there's a lot of people going through this. They've got more time than they need. So how do I use time? That's become a very, very important thing. I can just fritter away my time doing useless things. And one of the challenges at the moment is boredom. People get bored. And of course, they say in English, there's an expression, the empty mind is the devil's workshop. So if we're not really engaged and doing something and helping in a way the world around us, helping positively through our thoughts, words, and actions, then definitely something or the other will take us this way or that. And so this great present of time I have, and I have to really know how to manage my time better. The second present that I'm seeing is because I have more time, I can experience more silence. I can use silence to create that inner strength, to create that response to whatever's going on around me. If I have, if I think that I'm wise in any way, the wisdom is in how I respond to things, and I can work on that internally. In silence, I'm actually just engaged with myself, and I start to realize how, when in the depth of that inner silence, I am a being of peace. I can experience my own peace. It's not something I'm reading in a book, I'm listening to in a talk, but it's something which is my own property that I can make, come out. I can really develop it, cherish it, and have that there inside me. And it's such a great balancer. Doesn't matter what's going on around. I am this being of peace. Nothing and no one can take that away from me. But I really need to develop that consciousness in silence. The third present that I'm seeing is simplicity. We live in a very complicated world where many things are very complicated. I just had to close a bank account, one of the bank accounts I had for a business that I've shut down. Such a difficult thing to close a simple bank account. To open a bank account, it's very easy. To close it, my God, I've spent hours trying to get them to understand what I wanted to do. So that we live in a very complicated world, but at the moment, the choices before us are becoming simplified. What are the sorts of things I can eat? I've discovered, because I haven't traveled, I haven't been able to travel, actually. I'm staying in our retreat center about 2 hours from the city of Sao Paulo, in the mountains, beautiful. It's sort of lush green tropical mountains, very pleasant weather. The average temperature is 20, throughout the year, so it's very pleasant. And there's a lot of water, different, I guess, from your side, a lot of greenery and mountains. And so, because I've been able to get into a very regular routine, I decided that I only need to eat twice a day. So I have lunch, and then the next meal is breakfast the next day. So that's been doing that ever since we came into lockdown. And it's been very interesting, I've realized I don't need to eat 3 meals a day. I think it's more of a habit than a necessity. And I guess the choices also, there's a lot of greenery, a lot of things we can take from the jungle even. So we've got a list of about 20 ingredients that we just take from the jungle. So very simple, very, very simple thinking, simple living, that sort of lifestyles. I've been really appreciating it. So simplicity is something that we should take as a gift. Many people, because they don't go to restaurants anymore, or they don't go out, they don't go, there are restrictions in what they can do. They found ways of having games with their loved ones and so on. Use better the time to do simpler things. It's a good gift. And in fact, the fourth present, and this is specifically related to those places that have had to lock down or their self-imposed quarantine or whatever. People are with the ones who they've been closest to lately, So people, if you had no time with your families before, now you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in this country anyway. So you can imagine, you're in the 60s, parents had 45 minutes a day with their children. Just before this pandemic, it was down to about 5 minutes a day with their children because of work. And now it's back to even higher levels. We've got much, much more time with our families or the people that mean most to us in our lives. And so we've got an incredible chance to harmonize our relationships and understand the basis of harmonies. After all, if you ask anyone what's the most important thing in their life, and I used to do this so many times, what's the most important thing of your life? Write on a slip of paper, and they would say family. Okay, on the reverse side of the paper, write what do you spend your most time doing? And they would write work. So family is most important, but they don't have enough time for it. Now they have more time for it. Are they taking advantage of? Now, what are the things that I have to talk about? What are the serious conversations that I need to have that I've been avoiding? What are the imperatives that will make our relationship more harmonious? What are the things that I have to forgive and forget? So there's a lot of opportunity to harmonize relationships. And I think the fifth present, at least for me, has been like being able to, from silence and from, using time properly and so on and working towards harmonization, I can also sit back a little bit and become more detached from what's going on in the world around me. And I can see more about the world situation. I can see more about the connection between people and things. Yesterday, I was doing an article and I had to look at some pictures of the Earth, the planet Earth, cut in the middle. So you see all of these layers from the crust and then the different levels of magma and so on, rocks, and then the very hard core of the Earth. There are different levels, right? So if you cut the Earth in the middle, you'd see all of these levels. But we're only aware of the crust, basically, what's on the surface of our planet. We're just only aware of that. And of course, there's a lot of illusions about that surface, From space, it looks like one thing. It's like a beautiful pearl swimming through space, a blue and white and brown and green pearl. That's our planet. But then when you get closer, people have drawn lines or maps. This is our part of it. This is your part of it. Don't enter my part of it because, it's only something that human beings have succeeded in doing. If you have a butterfly on the border between Bahrain and I guess Saudi Arabia, maybe there are not many butterflies, but if there were one, what nationality is it? What nationality are birds? What nationality are fishes? What nationality is this virus? It doesn't have. It's something that exists in our own mind. So we've divided up our planet and we live in this surface of things. We don't even, we can't see much. We can only see, I would say, physically, we can only see 3% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So 97% of it we can't see. Our eyes won't pick it up. All of the different rays that are there, we can't see them. Even dogs can hear better than we can, So we're limited to our sense perception, which is very, small, and we're not aware of anything that's going on. We're sitting on our little piece of the planet, while the planet's going thousands of kilometers per hour around the sun and on its own axis, just turning and moving the whole, and we don't even feel it. So our sense perception is very restrictive. That there are so many other things going on at the same time that we're not aware of. In the same way, my surface consciousness, the one that's engaged with this world, the one that's connected with my physical identity, where I was born, what sort of body I have, what gender, what my family name is, and so on and so forth. All of those things are extremely superficial. I would even say what what our cultures are and different traditions are, religious traditions, they're also very superficial. But if you go back a bit, and this is, I'm seeing as a very good present from the times that we're living in, a lesson, I would say. There is a spiritual reality behind things. We are spiritual beings going through this human experience. Wherever that human experience is, in France or in India or in China or in Bahrain, wherever that physical experience is happening, there's a spiritual reality behind that. And meditation puts me in touch with that spiritual reality and helps me to understand what I have to do. You know, there are so many possible virtues that I can learn in times of crisis, and specifically for myself. Since I've been normally if things were normal, I'd be traveling here, there, and everywhere. But for the first time in, I would say, 40 years, I guess, I've been in the same place for 3 months. Before that, I was traveling so much because I coordinate the activities of this organization in Latin America. So there's a lot of travel involved in that. But now I'm traveling through Zoom. And so having more time on my hands, I've noticed that I need more self-discipline. Just the virtue, the number one virtue that I'm learning at the moment, I'm appreciating, is self-discipline. Because I have to organize my life, I have to redimension my use of time. So this is there. Secondly, self-confidence. I'm really appreciating. The other day I had to do a presentation for the International Day of Yoga. They'd asked me to, because in between I've been a musician also. So they wanted me to record a short talk and sing a song. Problem is that being in a very remote place, I don't have access to a studio, and we couldn't go to studios because everything is locked. Everything's shut down. So I had to do it at home. And the talk was okay, but the mixing on the sound of the song was not very good. So what I ended up having to do was lip syncing my own song. I've got some backing tracks and I had to lip sync it. I'd never done that before in my whole life, never. I know that in the Middle East or even in India and so on, it's quite common, but I'd never done it. Anyway, I tried it a few times, and it turned out pretty good, actually, the lip syncing. And so when I'm able to do something, that gives me a boost of confidence. You know, well, if I can do something that I've never done before. Why not? Why can't I, change my patterns in a way so that I can do something else? In our understanding of the way life is, there's something called sanskars, which are the impressions that we create in ourselves when we think, speak, or do something. And those impressions, they're like tracks in the sand in a way. So if you go, and a lot of the roads here are dirt roads, and especially in bad weather, those roads become terrible. So what happens after some time, the cars start to go in a certain way across these tracks, across these dirt roads, and they create their own, movement. And so the next car comes along, will follow the tracks of the one before. And then the third one, the fourth one. And after some time, you've got very, very deeply defined tracks across the dirt road. These are like our sanskars. Every time we do something, we create tracks in ourselves, and then we follow those same tracks the next time, and then we follow them again, and we follow them again. After some time, we don't even think. We just follow the same things that we've been doing. So if I want to be controlled by outside circumstances, and I just have to allow these sanskars to to take me here and there. I'll be led by them. I'll be led by what I've done in the past and not by what I would like to do in the future. So the third virtue that I really appreciate from this time is self-respect, learning to value myself. Not just learning about what I'm good at, which will help my self-confidence, but learning what my true spiritual value is. And this is what's going to hold me strong, and it's going to help me keep the higher ground no matter what's going on. If I'm strong internally, I can help others that are really having difficulty in the crisis. If I lose my own perspective, then I can't help anyone, really. It's like someone's struggling in the quicksand, and I jump into the quicksand to help them. Of course, both of us will perish. So if I want to help someone who's really struggling, I have to be stable. It's like in this example of the quicksand, I have to keep my one foot out of it, and probably my arm too, holding on to something outside of the quicksand so that I can help save someone else. So, and that strength comes from an understanding of my own value. I am a spiritual being. I have qualities of peace, love, contentment, truth. These are my special innate qualities. So let me create that solid foundation internally so that, I can help others really with that strength. The fourth virtue that I'm picking up on is really a sense of responsibility. Not just, at the moment, of course, there are so many people whom we could help, so many people who are confused. So if I've understood something about spiritual laws, and if I've understood something about, these deeper things, I can definitely help others. But that has to be my sense of responsibility, because if I have spiritual knowledge, that brings with it a responsibility to help others. Definitely. People need some kind words. People need some subtle strength. People need some boost of enthusiasm. So let me take up the responsibility of serving others at this time. And of course, the fifth virtue that I've been learning is connected with that, is compassion. The word in English, anyway, comes from two roots in Latin, con, which means with, and pati, which is connected with suffering. So if you translated it literally, compassion means with suffering, but it means suffering with, that I pick up on someone else's suffering. But that's not just that. It just doesn't mean that someone's suffering, I pick up on it, and so what? It really means that I feel the responsibility and the concern to help them alleviate that if I can. So the vocation of all of us, the internal vocation of all of us is to serve others. And we can serve others at a distance even. We can become spiritual lighthouses and send out very good vibrations. We can send out sort of light and might to others at a distance. And this really helps. We can, at the moment, we see a lot of people suffering here and there. It's absolutely a terrible thing to see how people are dying in Brazil. I think around 60,000 deaths so far, and 1.5 million, 2 million cases. So it's a huge amount of suffering. And they can't even be buried by their loved ones. They just, no one can come near. They can't even. So all of those social criteria are being broken because of this. And so how much suffering there is. People are going hungry. People don't have money. So what can you do? You can't go and give out food to everyone who doesn't have food, or money to everyone who doesn't have money. But what you can do is sit where you are and send out really powerful vibrations of peace and love, to help embrace people in this sort of feeling of compassion. So to sum up, before we open up for some questions, I'd like just to say that this thing that I mentioned, that problems don't have a nationality, they don't have a culture. What's going on in the world at the moment is affecting everyone. It has no religious or nationalistic connotation at all. It's affecting rich, poor, it's affecting single people, married people, old people, young people. Certainly the financial consequences of this pandemic are affecting everyone everywhere, affecting people's bank accounts. So it's like a universal problem. And I remember my parents, Australia in the Second World War was invaded, two territories in the north of Australia. Those days, Papua and New Guinea were part of Australia. And they were occupied totally by the Japanese. And the Japanese also bombed the city of Darwin in the north of Australia. So in my parents' generation, they fought in the war. And, everything stopped in function of that war. They used to tell me these stories, terrible stories. My mother's first husband was killed in the war. Her brother was killed in the war. And so everyone lost a few here and there. And so this sort of situation will be remembered, what we've been going through, that people have been suffering a lot. So problems don't have a culture or nationality. The second thing, that I need to be more prepared for this uncertain future. Uncertainty is growing, and I can't really make definite plans about the future, but I can make definite plans about the present. People are talking about the new normal, but in fact, it's the new now. What am I doing now to strengthen myself, my relationships, so that when whatever future comes, whether it's bad or good, I'll be ready to face it. The third thing, that to sum up what I'm saying, we need to understand how to strengthen the immune system of the internal self, to have a strong mind, to have a strong perception, to have a correct response to when something bad happens. I can strengthen that. That is within my control. I can't control anything outside of me, but I can control my response. And the last thing, I think, to do all of this, to strengthen ourselves, we need to learn to meditate properly. So we should do some meditation now, and then some questions. It's probably better. Let's have some meditation. So I'd like everyone to sit where you are, sit calmly, sit nicely, wherever you are in your seat. Just perceive the moment. What's going on around you at this moment? Literally, what are the sounds that you can hear? What's the temperature? How is your breathing? Can you hear your heartbeat? What can you feel? Can you feel your feet on the floor? Can you feel the hands on your knees or in your lap? And again, keep your eyes semi-open, so not completely closed, not completely open, so that you can still perceive colors and forms. So your different sense organs are all working. And physically you're seated on a seat, but if you go to the seat of consciousness. And in the same way that you're sitting on a physical seat, just go to a subtle seat behind your eyes, middle of the forehead, a few centimeters back from there, where all of the processes of your conscious life begin and end. So all of the information comes in and goes here. And from here, I command everything. So sit on that subtle seat of command and feel how stable it is. And in that stability, you can feel the sense of peace. You can feel how peaceful you are. This is my own property. No one can take it away from me. Because I'm not jumping around here and there, I feel fairly stable, fairly content, and disposed to be loving. This is my real nature. I am a loving being. I am a peaceful being. These are my deep innate qualities. And because of that, I remember their divine connection. There is a connection with the one who we remember by different names because of these qualities. So I remain connected in this state. I am this peaceful being. I know the world outside of me, there's a lot of confusion and chaos. But I am in the center of my life. I'm in the center of 360 degrees of things happening around me. And I'm still, I'm stable. So I'm at the same time, I'm charging up my battery, my spiritual battery, so that when I come back to my activities, I feel more charged and more capable of dealing with things. Just enjoy this moment of connection with your deeper self. And the one whom we remember with many names. Our spiritual source for everyone. Little by little, let's open up our eyes a little bit more. Let's come back to the normality of our surroundings wherever we are. Just enjoying, ready for anything. Okay, so if there are any questions, then I think they'll be read out, and let's see if I can answer them. Let's see.
So before the questions, Brother Ken, that was really powerful, peaceful, and really gives a lot of motivation. No? So we have questions over here.
Yeah.
So one question here is, the organizations are facing and also need to change for the future at all levels, especially the mindset need to be changed and transformed from illusion to the genuine as spiritual essence. In your perspective, what are the critical points for this change in organizations? Okay.
Well, if I knew the answer to that, it's like it's a solution for the whole world.
Yeah.
But I guess it really depends on the ones who are supposed to be the leaders of the organization, because they can inspire or de-inspire. Certainly the sorts of practices that led to this situation, I think even these people are in a different mode at the moment, because they've also been forced into lockdown. Some of them actually had contracted the virus and had to really be in quarantine themselves. Like, I'm talking about political leaders and business leaders in many countries. Even in Brazil at the moment, the president has the virus. So after criticizing it so much, he now has it himself. So a lot of them could have, in this period of everything being different, changed. In this period of a downturn in the economy, the GDP of the most developed countries in the world at the moment is minus 7%. And if there's a second wave of the virus, which is most likely, it'll go down to minus 10%. So 10% less economy in most of the advanced economies. So it's not easy. So people who are supposed leaders, they should be thinking about, first of all, how to engage with their people, because the greatest asset that any company has is the people themselves. How to inspire them to be innovative and creative, how to have the right conversations with the right people, how to listen more, because when their workers come back from sort of being semi-laid off or laid off completely, so a lot of people are working half-time only. So this is creating problems in their own homes. So a leader at this time has to be very sensitive for those sorts of discussion. It has to be very empathetic. If you look at the list of characteristics, and I saw an article recently, leadership qualities in the post-COVID world in the Forbes magazine, and they were all lovely qualities. But the thing is, if you were not used to respecting people, it's not going to change from one day to the other. If you were not used to really listening to people and trying to inspire them to get their best ideas out, that's not going to happen from one day to the other. And there's no magic formula to have success, but I really believe in the spiritual, from a spiritual perspective, and in the work that I've been doing in organizations for many years, decades actually, has been trying to translate spiritual words into more understandable words. And you can show spirituality in the workplace, disguised as values, disguised as, processes and so on. And it somehow works. But it really depends on the leader, the leaders, how sensitive they are to what's going on. They need to have very, very good human skills. to work with people to get the best out of them, because human beings are generally very creative. We've faced so many disasters in so many places. If you think about even our own, my family's Irish descendant, so my grandparents fled from a civil war in Ireland, and they arrived in Australia with nothing. So you can imagine they faced things. People are resilient. People have creativity. But I have to be a very sensitive person. I can't go on with that command and control mentality anymore, because you can't control chaos. And people are looking for better working situations. Everyone's gone through a whole process of introspection, I would say, and they're coming out of it. We need to be very sensitive to their realizations. What else?
Okay, thank you, Brother Ken. Second, how about if the surrounding environment inside the home and at work keeps knocking you down? You sit quietly and send positive vibes, but what else? But what else should be done to be immune to such toxic surroundings?
Meditate better. You can become immune to such things, but then I would ask myself the following: do I need to continue in such a place? Because there are better places. And if the answer is no, I can go to another place. I can do a few things. I can talk to people about it and risk being fired, especially if the cause of it is the way the system is and the way the bosses are. And if I talk about it, then they may send me away, or they may listen, or I can choose to go somewhere else. The thing is that there are real situations. If I need to pay the rent and I need a job, even though I don't like it, I need the money, then I have to face that. I have to accept that is part of the situation. So there are real pressures, but there are also unreal pressures in my imagination and so on. I can become, if I'm really understanding people, people who are angry, for example, are people who are frustrated generally. So basically, angry people are angry with themselves because something is not working out in their lives. They're not being able to, I know, they have got a bad relationship with one of their children or with their wife or husband, and that's been pressuring on them for years. Sometimes there's some secret in the past that has been corroding their inner state for years. So they're frustrated and they explode with anger. So I have to see the sufferer rather than the angry person, because then I'll tend to be more compassionate. If I just see the angry person, I'll get angry or bothered by it. But if I see behind that anger, behind that aggressive behavior, I'll see a sufferer, then maybe I can mentally help them, even if I can't do that through words. So you have three options in a bad job. Talk about it, risk getting fired. Talk about it and help to start solve it, or leave. Find something else to do. They're the three options. I mean, let's be real. Anything else?
Okay, so another question. How to convince the young that meditation is good for them? How to slow down and contemplate?
I think you have to be an example, basically. You have to be, as Mahatma Gandhi once said, you have to be the change that we want. We can't, there's an expression, I don't know if you have it in the Arabic languages, that you can take a horse to the water, but you can't force the horse to drink it. What you can do is you can make the horse thirsty so that the horse will want to drink. So this is like you have to be very artful, but you have to show the benefits of meditation in yourself and be very open about it. Because children, they are like plants, and plants need water, plants need light, plants need good soil. They need some space to grow, and they need time. So spiritually, what that means, I have to be constantly giving some light of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, without preaching. Secondly, I have to make sure that the soil is of good values. I have to make sure that the watering, which is the feeling of love, is there. And then I have to make sure that there's enough space for growth, freedom, in order to grow, and also enough time. So if I'm not doing those things, I can't expect the plant to grow just by expecting it. And if I am doing that, I'm creating a healthy growing environment. I'm responsible with it in the house for creating a growing environment in which people learn and grow. And if they don't grow, even though I've been there creating good soil, make sure there's enough light, making sure there's enough water and so on, then they don't grow, it's not my problem. It's a problem in the seed. But if I'm not doing that, I can't really expect the person to be very different. So I don't teach people. I can't teach people. I can help them learn. That's different. What else?
Okay, so the next question. In today's scenario, many are losing jobs, causing insecurity, fear, and worry for survival. On practical note, what thoughts and actions can boost the confidence and spirit of all affected and concerned souls? What's my role in this situation to help others?
Yeah.
Thoughts, actions.
Well, the thing is that what I'm going to say, there's nothing you can do to change that. What you have to do, you have to be something in order for something to happen. So if personally, and I really believe in that phrase from the German philosopher Goethe, that the universe will conspire in the favor of certain individuals. Well, those certain individuals, who are they? How can they help get the universe or the world around us to support us? I have to have a level of understanding, and I have to really not be moved by the ego. This is what I believe. I don't need much. But if I'm trying to battle a way to make my ego-based ideas happen, and I'm seeing that they're not happening, the reason is that there's no cooperation from anything around. First of all, the other egos won't cooperate with you. So you have to check your motivation. Why do you do what you do? Is there some elevated motive behind what you're doing? It doesn't matter what area you're working in. For example, I'm a doctor, and my thing in life is to become rich through being a doctor. I will be a doctor and I will earn a lot of money. That's not a very elevated motivation. But for the same profession, the motivation is, I am here to help people move people beyond their illness. That's a higher motivation. If I really hold on to that, I will find the cooperation. I will find the support around me. I'll find that it's easy. Let's say there are 10 candidates for the same job. 9 of them are all worried and, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? They're all in a state of panic. The state of panic is motivated by that question, what if? What if this? What if that? So there are 9 of the people in that state of panic. What if? And if I don't do this, this is the 30th interview this month. I'm not going to, it's going to be difficult. They're already sealing their fate. And let's say one of the people, no, this particular job that's come up, I can do it. I can do it to help. I can use this money to help. I can use this profession to help some way. So if I can somehow organize myself to not only be served, but I have to organize myself to serve, to be useful to the society, then I'll find that there is support from me around. So it's a subtle thing, and it does take a lot to understand. But definitely I have the experience. I came to this country. I couldn't speak the language in Brazil, and I didn't have money. I had about $200. That was it. I was in a different culture, different environment. I couldn't work because my university education had to be validated. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. But I had a great will to serve the people here. And so everything I've needed, I've always had. So it's like if I'm greedy, I won't have what I need. But if I'm not greedy, I will always have what I need. Sort of a subtle thing that I have to understand. Okay?
So really, yeah, I
Okay,
think
finishing up.
let me check if we can still.
No, it's okay. You can finish up if you want.
No, it's okay. We'll see. Okay, so there's one question here. I think this is the last question, brother. How to stop the overthinking and the worry? Is there a switch in the brain to switch assurance instead of those thoughts of fear? Meditation only works momentarily. Is there a long-term way, or I will stay in this yo-yo game forever? So that's the last question, I suppose.
Well, the thing is, again, this is a question. If you had the answer to that, you'd earn millions of dollars. If there was such a switch, my God, people are after a pill. People are trying to find a peace pill or something. But it's really a consequence of some inner work. Because just as I'm now speaking more slowly, right, I can also learn to think more slowly. I can only have one thought at a time. So let me learn to think less. And let me learn to think better. These two things. So I have to understand what are the better thoughts. And I have to understand that if I train myself to become a detached observer, automatically my thinking will slow down. And if I've got a lot of thoughts in a day, like up to maybe 100,000, if you've got a thought every half second, there's about 120,000 bits every day. You can reduce that from 120,000 to 60 to 30 to 20 to 5,000, maybe 1,000 thoughts. And again, what's happening is that you have to decide something. You don't have to think 10 times. You think once. That's it. Because there's more clarity. So as you start the practice of meditation, these two things happen automatically, but it's not from one day to the next. It takes some time. But after some time, you'll find yourself automatically thinking less and thinking better. Okay?
Well, okay. Brother Ken. So I thought you're going to give us a song. Okay, anyway, next time.
Yeah, next,
So in
it was
behalf
more
of
difficult to do. Yeah.
yeah, in behalf of everyone, I wish to thank you really for such a wonderful, it's such a lot of knowledge, deep knowledge, but you had put it in a very way that it seemed to be doable with such a great, let's say, vibration. So this would be a good seed to start with, to continue working on better points. You have given us very, very good perspective to be able to take great lessons that we can apply in our lives. So before this pandemic ends up. So really, from each and every one, Brother Ken, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, Vicky, I'm seeing Ansuya here. Thank you, Ansuya. Lovely to see you.
I came to say thank you to you. It was such a wonderful seeing you. It's as if we are just sitting face to face. It's the whole pandemic has made everyone united, and we feel it so nice, as if you're in your comfort and you're just there. And thank you so much, Brother Ken, for accepting the invitation. And there is a lot of overwhelming response from the audience, and they all enjoyed it. And thank you so much. And we will definitely have you again in the future. And
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Okay, great. I'm seeing someone from Seychelles there. Oh, wow. I've been there as well 7 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Thank
So yeah,
you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Before we say goodbye to everyone, we have some few announcements to make. So there is the upcoming event, which will be shown in the screen. So this is another powerful talk, okay, by our brother. So you see that, no? Okay. Spirituality is a business tool. Yeah, okay. And then also in line with some of the points that you have asked, Brother Ken, tonight, we're going to have a positive thinking course by July 20, starting July 20, 22, 27, and 29. So it's going to be a 4-session course, positive thinking. So it would be same timing, 7:35 in the evening until 8:45. So, and more powerful talks to come. So thank you, everyone. And we wish that you stay peaceful, stay powerful, and stay safe. Boost the immune system, as brother said. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, brother. Look
Thank
forward
you.
again to meeting you.
Bye-bye. See
Bye
you.
bye. Yeah.